to some folks, elders, and ask them, hey, do you remember this song? Do you remember what year it came out? And they don't know the specifics. But every single one of them that I spoke to, and this is since I arrived on this trip, because I haven't thought about the song in quite a while. When I asked them about the song, a lot of them said, oh man, he really brought the rain. Like they truly felt and believed it, that he was the one, he was the rainmaker. Like that is what everybody believed. Hello and welcome to another episode of Music and Nostalgia. I know y'all have seen me in different hats. I hope you're loving this one. Gotta give a big thanks to the missus. I did tell you, thank you for the hat. I'm loving it. This one rocks. So I'm really excited about this episode this week, and here's why. I am currently in Nigeria, and when I arrived in Nigeria, it was super hot, felt really dry to my skin, and it felt almost like there had been a lack of moisture in the air for weeks. That's what it felt like. Obviously, I haven't been here in a little while, so it begs to differ. It begs to other people's opinions. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically, not everybody feels that way, right? I'm probably the only one that feels like that. Well, what was really exciting, day 2 of my arrival, it poured down rain, and it was torrential. It was heavy. It was something serious. Like it wasn't even lull me to sleep type of rain. It was one of those aggressive, I'm about to tear you apart type of rain. And I was like, wow, I haven't experienced this in a long time. And immediately it took me way back to my childhood. And it's weird how I can remember the era, but I remember when I was about 8 or 9. It was actually it was the year 1989. Why do I remember that? Because that was the year we moved into my parents' first home that they built from the ground up, and that was just something to remember. Well, that was the year that this rain took me to. And for those of you that grew up in the 80s in Nigeria, this is something that you're probably very familiar with. Nigeria is an oil-rich country. In the 80s, a region of the country called the South is prominently known for having the largest banks of oils. And what was really cool about that experience was that oil was booming, and in the 80s, I think oil might have been like 33 plus a gallon, and closer to 1988, it's like $14 a gallon. And look at the world we're in right now. We know how oil fluctuates, right? But so there was that going on. There was a lot going on that wasn't really favorable for Nigeria. Nigeria in '88 went to the Olympics, and Nigeria, if you know Nigeria, our thing is soccer. We may not care about any of the sports on a major level as far as our participation, at least back then, but soccer was life is life. And so we got bronze and silver in the year 84. So 4 years later, it was expected we would get at least a silver, right? And we didn't medal on anything in 88. So another rough experience for the year. In 88, we also had 87, 88, we had a terrible drought that had hit Nigeria in certain regions particularly, but of course it affected the whole nation. The drought was so bad that nothing was going in our favor. Oil wasn't going well. The drought was hitting us. We weren't doing well in soccer globally, right? There were so many other things going on. And not that I knew these things specifically as a kid, but it was so interesting because I knew the mood of the times. I remember, soccer was life, and so when you couldn't bring soccer up and see joy and the lifted spirits of Nigerians, because that was not the era where we were really enjoying the fruits of our labor when it came to soccer, or football, as the rest of the world would call it, right? So it was really tough to imagine enjoying that time period in those specific categories. And of course, the drought was something that economically, socially, was affecting all of us in so many major ways. But I want to talk about Majek Fashek. For those of you that grew up in Nigeria, Majek Fashek, we know him. He was a legend. He was a pioneer in the music industry. And at the time, he was actually one of those pioneers in the Nigerian reggae movement. Like, there were people that were doing it, but he really came with a twist in the style, and it gave it the edge of Nigerianness to it, but still had that island flavor from Jamaica and all the islands. A really nice, healthy mix. And he, like, for those of you that are hearing this, a lot of my audience, you guys are probably familiar with Nigeria as the Afro beats. A few of you might be familiar with the Afro Juju, which is the era of King Sunny Ade and Obey and that generation of musicians. Well, there's also an era where we had reggae. We were really big in that space, and this Majek Fashek was one of those that just was a pioneer in the space. He was known. He rocked the stages. Well, his premiere album came out in '89, and what's so powerful about this era is because in this era is when he also really influenced a lot of great things for Nigeria. One being that he decided to grab his guitar. Remember, we were going through a drought, and he decided to grab his guitar and strum his instrument and created a song that is forever known. It is, the title of the song is Send Down the Rain. And when that song played, I know there were people out there that thought, that's goofy. It's cute, right? It's nice. But who do you think you are? This young 20-something-year-old. He was 25-year-old at the time. But he strummed the guitar, played the song, and it felt like almost instantaneously when the entire nation knew the song, Send Down the Rain, it is as if at that moment the floodgates were opened up, like the heavens opened up, and we saw rain in such a powerful and majestic way that I remember he did the song. He had a video where they were splashing water in the air, like rain, and he was just dancing, just vibing, like just all the way in it. And I remember, stuff like, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on how it starts, right? But when I think about the song, mama 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 yo, papa 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 yo, send down the rain, and he would. I mean, this song was live. I'm a living man, got a lot of work to do. Send down the rain, and this whole song was so spiritual, like it touched everybody to the core. And it's interesting. I've talked to some folks, elders, and asked them, "Hey, do you remember this song? Do you remember what year it came out?" And they don't know the specifics. But every single one of them that I spoke to, and this is since I arrived on this trip, because I haven't thought about the song in quite a while. When I asked them about the song, a lot of them said, "Oh man, he really brought the rain." Like they truly felt and believed it, that he was the one, he was the rainmaker. Like that is what everybody believed. And it was amazing because when we all hear the song from that era, that generation of Nigerians that remember the song Send Down the Rain by Majek Fashek, we all can pretty much go back to that time period, and all that we would even imagine is the day we heard it was the day the rain came. That's just how impactful the song is. Now, you may not have experienced that particular song, right? But I know when some people listen to Marvin Gaye and you hear stuff that he said back then and you listen to his music now, it's almost as if he pointed to the situation. Al Green, think about so many artists from the 70s, the 80s that would sing, make music, 60s that would make music that would till to this day still speak to us. Or Nigerians, we can think about Fela singing many songs that, A Beast of No Nation, that to this day those songs still speak to us as if he wrote it yesterday. But they're so prophetic, right? So everybody I remember, everybody I remembered loved the song so much that we were drawn in, and our belief system truly told us that 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 Majek Fashek, Majek Fashek, the artist, his given name, brought down the rain, and the timing was impeccable. He believed it too. It wasn't a thing that he sang, that he sung just to bite into the moment. He sang that with all belief, everything in him, and he killed it. I mean, when I think about the work that he did in really shaping the reggae sound in Nigeria, that is one song that always takes me right back to. He did a take on Bob Marley's Redemption song that, I mean, oh, you feel it. It touches your soul. But I just think about every single moment now. Like as it rained yesterday and the day before, the way it felt like it washed away the past. How it gave us a new beginning. When you think about it, in a farming area, you send down the rain, you're nurturing and you're nourishing the soil, giving it an opportunity to give life and spread life through the seeds, through the plants, so now that we can be nourished, so that now we can now cherish the moment that we get to consume and appreciate the things that give us life. And that was just such an impactful part of the journey. 1989 will forever be indelibly marked in my memory as a time period where Majek Fashek decided to bless us with his connection with the Almighty to give us rain in Nigeria when we desperately needed it. This was a time period where, one, like I said, oil wasn't doing too well as far as the prices were concerned. What else was going on? We weren't doing well in the soccer, globally in the soccer world. This was the time that we were under a military regime. At the time, it was Ibrahim Babangida that was in charge of the nation. It was a tough time to be in the country. People were suffering, were challenged with finances, exploring the world, gaining notoriety or achieving higher levels in our lives. And I remember that was another tough period. So that was another challenging period in Nigeria. On top of that, there was also I mentioned Fela. Fela had not dropped an album in about 3 years, and people were crying, cringing, waiting for the moment that he would bring something, because we knew. And if anybody's ever watched the play Fela or ever read a book about him or watched a documentary or just listened to the music, you know he gives zero cares about what people say or think. He is going to drop his music with the message that's supposed to be in it, right? And that's just who he is, and that's what he's always done. So yes, that's part of the beauty of what that song "Send Down the Rain" by Majek Fashek meant in that time period for me. And I can imagine there are other people my age, a little older, and like my dad's generation even, where when I ask them about this song, their memory of it is just so tightly strung to this man bringing us rain. Even though, of course, my dad knows. I mean, I had a conversation with him, and he knows logically, right? But emotionally, spiritually, you got to think this man did it. The timing was right. When they probably told him to stop singing the song, to put it away, when he sang it day after day, week after week, month after month, until the entire country knew the song. And then it became a mantra. It felt like we were all doing the rain dance with him, but he led the charge. When there were so many questions about how things would look the next day, how things would shape up, that was a song that really meant something to us. And I remember that song, anytime there was just a little lull, there was shortness of rain, precipitation, you'd hear that song playing everywhere. Like it became that thing that we did. Like, oh, listen, it worked once in a major way. We ain't gonna back down now, right? Like, we're gonna take advantage of it. I thought about it. You know, arriving in Nigeria and experiencing the rain like I did, it really woke me up to that memory. And it's amazing what takes us somewhere. And I went immediately and searched for the song. Was so happy to find it online. I remember he moved to the U.S. quite a few years after that, and he continued to pursue his musical career. It never quite boomed like we hoped it would, you know, at the level that he experienced it in Nigeria. But, you know, you figure times are hard at that stage in Nigeria, even as an artist. It's not like he was super famous, but he wasn't super wealthy, because the industry wasn't designed for young artists who didn't know the industry, you know, to be able to capitalize on everything that was going on. But I do remember that he was just such a major influence in the way Nigerian reggae music grew and exploded. And that was just so great to see and embrace. And to this day, there's still his influence still lingers in certain aspects of Nigerian music. And especially if you hear any Nigerian reggae, you're like, oh yeah. The people that know and understand can point out how he influenced it. And I gotta find somebody who's fully aware of this stuff. If you know anybody that's fully aware of how Majek Fashek really influenced the Nigerian music industry, come on, let's go live on Instagram, or let's even have an episode. You can educate me and the rest of the audience about how Majek Fashek really changed the world. I did want to point out a few key things. I didn't do this earlier. I mean, I mentioned them along the way, but I wanted to point out a few key things about Majek Fashek. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago at the age of 57 in New York. He had a bit of a rough patch while in the United States. I remember running into him in Atlanta when he lived in Atlanta for a little while, and he did not look well. I wasn't sure exactly what he was on or what he was going through, but I could tell that he was not. He was a shell of the man that we grew up idolizing and admiring his work. But he was always such a joy. Like, even when I saw him, he exuded so much joy. And somebody asked him about his music, and he immediately sang a couple of lines, even with the roughness in his voice, the challenge. And I know at one time he didn't have a home that he lived in, so he was going through some rough patches. But I remember every Nigerian that knew who he was always celebrated him. Always, you know, if it was to get him into a restaurant to have a meal or whatever the case may be, I often saw that. And but I remember I ran into him a couple of times in Atlanta, and when I knew he wasn't doing well, I was hoping that there'd be some way back for him, some way back to notoriety, to high success, to good health. And found out that he passed away a couple of years ago in New York, and I remember Nigeria was really mourning him. Like they had a real funeral and a wake in Nigeria for him, even though he was in New York and even though he was buried in New York. And it's just something that, you know, you got to think, like, people cared enough to do that as a nation while he was across the ocean. And that was just really impactful. It was really touching for me. There's so many songs that he did over the years. I'm gonna look because I don't want to mess it up, because obviously he is. Oh, I remember he did a song. I come from the ghetto, and I remember when that joint. I remember I didn't even understand what was going on. I just thought like it was Majek, you know. So like But you heard it, and of course I didn't know anything about the ghetto, so I was like, I don't know what that means, but I was like, hey, this joint is bumping, right? And it was just a lot of influence that he had on the industry. You almost couldn't hear him. I mean, you couldn't hear music without hearing him within the rotation. That's how powerful he was in the late 80s, early 90s. Even long after we had too much rain at certain points, you still heard that Send Down the Rain all the time. And it's just powerful to see that people have a way of influencing our lives. And it could be one song, it could be a line in a song, or just a sound, a strumming of instruments, and it takes us right back to a moment, right back to a place, right back to a space. So now when I see torrential, heavy downpouring of rain in Nigeria anyway, it takes me right back to that moment when Nigeria was in a drought and he did this song and brought us out of the dry season into glorious rain. I remember people were outside dancing in the rain. Yeah, that's powerful and magical. So I wish upon you guys to have an experience, a memory, where it takes you right back to something as beautiful as this memory for me. And I can't wait to share it with those that grew up in the 80s and 90s in Nigeria that remember this song, because I would love to know what their experience is like. Because if you're like me, it probably touched you to the core. And I would love to know if you're one of those people that dance in the rain. But if you didn't grow up in Nigeria, if you didn't have that experience, there's something you heard. If it was Marvin Gaye, if it was, you name it, you name the artist, Michael Jackson, Prince, there's a moment that every time you hear heavy rain, or you hear strumming of a guitar, I don't care what the notes that they strum, and it takes you right back to Prince and his live concert, or whatever the case may be. I want to hear about those stories, and I want to experience them with you, because I truly believe when we travel down these memory lanes together, we get to see how similar we are and grow in the journey. So that's been another episode of Music and Nostalgia. I cannot wait to share more stories with you, learn your stories, and let the world know that no matter what our journey, what our path is, that the joy is always in the journey. Thank you all for sharing your time with me. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, and we'll see you in another episode. And just make sure you go out there and listen to some music and enjoy the experience, because there's some nostalgic moments on the way for you. Can't wait to hear them.